Yo, welcome back. You are listening to another episode of Mailbag Monday by the Money Matters podcast. I am your host, Jack, and I'm accompanied by my two co-hosts. You guys are co-hosts. My dad, Bill. Dad, how are you?
Excellent.
My best friend, Dylan. Dylan, how are you?
Couldn't be better.
Amazing. We've got no Brooke this week, but she's all well and in good spirits. She's had a conflict. She has a life outside of recording podcasts with me, which is entirely reasonable. Okay, before we get started, there are no sponsors. Why do we do this? Because we love Bitcoin. Been in Bitcoin for 11 years. It's a long time. That's over a third of my life. That's crazy. And because we love it, we like shooting the shit. This podcast is intended to be family and friends talking about Bitcoin. Authentically, very real, very free-spirited, very curious, very fun. If you do want to support us, I founded this company called Strike. In my opinion, we're one of the best in the world at Bitcoin. What does that mean? Bitcoin financial services. We're probably cheaper, better, faster, stronger, more available around the world at selling you Bitcoin and allowing you to store it, move it, use it, cross-border payments, all of the Bitcoin-related stuff that you would want from a business. We do it really, really well. So if you want to support us, you can go buy your Bitcoin at Strike and do your Bitcoin stuff with us. If you don't, that's cool too. And with that, the shooting the shit begins. Ciao from Rome. I'm saying that, though, with like almost like a Chinese. I don't know how to do Italian. Ciao. Anyway, I'm in Rome. Dylan's in Rome. Dad is in the States. Dad, do you want to kick us off with dollar bill? Thoughts
Sure.
on the market?
Oh, sure. This is going to be an easy one. I think hopefully at some point I said markets with too many bulls, too many longs are either going to wear you out or scare you out. And hopefully I said, remind me that we didn't think this market was going to do one of those scare you out things, which it has done in the past. As a reminder, there were too many bulls frequently in this market. And when Bitcoin dropped from 20,000 down to 3,500 or something, that's an 80% plus shock. It's done that twice since I've been trading it. That's what I would call like a scare you out type of bear market. And this market just doesn't feel, while I do think it's got to get healthier open interest wise. I think that's going to look like more of a wear you out type of market. Range bound, frustration, no follow through. And hopefully I said that so check this out. I'm looking across all asset classes. I'm going to look at stocks, precious metals, the Case-Shiller index, right, as a proxy for real estate. And when we spoke 2 weeks ago, the Dow was at 39,069. It's now at 38,763. So, I mean, that's unchanged. Gold was 2,335. It's now 2,328. So that's what we mean by wear you out. The real estate index, the proxy I use is the Case-Shiller. That's domestic. That was 311 when we last spoke. It's now 316. That is a wear you out type of situation, right? No follow through on anything. I've looked, you look at charts. Bitcoin just did a weekly close that looked meaningful on some chart interpretations, but really when you zoom out, I think this is a solidly range bound, kind of boring, no follow through, frustration, wear you out kind of market. And which of course begs the question on what's going to change that. I don't know. Election year, ETF approval. There's always rumors about more nation state adoption. I'm ready to break out of this range, but this market, like I said, I'm looking for prices from 2 weeks ago, and they are almost identical. It is a range bound affair.
Interestingly, range bound affair at prior all-time highs too, which is that rare for a market to hang around its all-time high like this?
Yes. Oh, I'd be surprised if this high endures I mean, I think, like I said, markets like round numbers. Markets tend not to hang around all-time highs. anything. I'd like to think one of these episodes in the not too distant future, we're going to be 70, 75s, I think is a nice round number target. That could easily be in our future. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you've said this before.
Never sell a sleeping market. Is that I know you guys like all your old cliches. Never sell a sleeping market. I think tries to capture just what you said. Yeah, the market's not doing anything. Yeah, it's frustrating, range bound, but it's also 5% from its all-time high. Yeah, never. Right. A lot of people, it's stalled out. The rally stalled out. Maybe I should sell some and take some profits. But yeah, no, I tried that in the 50s. That didn't work. Right. Markets. I think that's what you mean when people say never sell a sleeping market. If this market is dead and dull, it should be liquidating, but yet it's not. It's hanging right at, right within 5% of an all-time high is probably a healthy sign.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I bring it up is I remember this, I think in the last cycle where it kind of hung around 20,000, I think, for a while. And I was like, we thought, oh, once we get there, we're going to 100. And it just kind of hung around. And this is going to be an imperfect analogy because a roller coaster, after you go up the lift, crashes you down. So I'm not implying Bitcoin's going to crash down, but it's almost the equivalent of you go up the lift of a roller coaster to get to the climactic part. And then let's say the ride pauses and just freezes and something breaks. And you're just sitting at the top of the roller coaster waiting for the thrill and the part that you got on for. And you get to feel all the emotions and you just have to sit there. And eventually you're going to be like, well, get me off this fucking roller coaster. I don't want to be on the ride anymore. But the hardest thing to do, as you've said, in a market is nothing at all sometimes. The hardest part of hodling Bitcoin is actually not doing anything. It's not hodlers are the best Bitcoin traders ever aren't people that have done amazing things every single day. It's actually the fact that they've done nothing every single day. That's actually really hard. It's much harder than trying to change the world every day is to just sit there on your hands. So
you feel like you should be doing something, right? Oh, come on, I've done my homework. I'm listening to what Fidelity's saying. I'm listening to BlackRock saying this market's open. Time to get to work. Yeah, but I think it, like I said, if I'm looking across every different asset class I can find, and they are all showing kind of year-over-year double-digit gains, is I think a good market where you really can sit on your hands. You can't always, but you got a lot of strong trending markets. Asset markets tend to trend, and as you know, I think the feedback mechanisms that support price trends are more immediate and more pronounced in currencies. Currencies are quicker to get to. I mean, I can circle back and support that if you want, but no, I think I see no reason not to trade with this trend, considering how broad it is. And like I said, you want to throw in the fact that it's an election year, that helps too. I would still be positioned the same, but no, I think it's a reflation story. I think you trade from the long side until I stop seeing double-digit percent gains across every asset class. Yeah, we're trading from the long side.
Yeah. I got a question for you. What is it? 45 years in financial markets or something like that? What your experience? Yeah.
Yeah. 1977.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first job on an exchange floor.
Yeah. A lot of experience. There's a lot of rhetoric that I don't know. The only financial market I've really had experience with is Bitcoin. So people say sell in May, go away, or buy in May, go away. Point being that in the summer, markets don't move as much because all the capital goes on vacation and their kids get out of school and whatever, and that markets tend to calm down. On top of that, with the election year, things are probably going to get really intense in the fall around September when you've got the debates and you're ramping up to the election. But in the summer, I've also seen people theorize that the markets are going to chop around and move sideways because no one wants to make definitive positions before the election. And that leading up to the election will probably get a lot crazier. But in the summer, it's probably best to just put your mask down, close your computer, and go on the beach with your kids. And then once you send them back to school and Trump and Biden start debating, then it's time to take positions. Is that true? Is there any validity to summers being a little bit smoother, markets not having too much activity over?
Well, so I mean, August is dead for Europe. Typically, Europeans take August vacations. I think the rest of the summer, I just think the sell in May and go away is that kind of like, if you're, it's originally, I think from the ag markets, but it's you have to price in anything that might happen once the crop's in the ground. How do you got to price it in? You don't know if you're going to have a drought or a flood or an early frost or whatever. It all has to be priced in during planting season. Rarely does that ever manifest, but that's why oftentimes May is the high point of the growing season, because you still have to price in possibilities. And is this market heading into an election year? Do you have to price in? I mean, we've seen, Bush Gore had to be practically litigated to even settle it. There was so much volatility in the financial markets that week. It was up. It was Bush Gore, just up, down, all week long. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with a contested election coming up if you're going to get more volatility in the financial markets. That might, but no, that's what. That would argue again for what you're saying, that the summer is probably going to be a range bound, frustrating kind of affair, a wear you out kind of market. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, because I'm now picturing that would wear me out. Now, obviously, I would never sell my Bitcoins, but man, if we were still chopping between 69K and 70K on August 10th, I'd be like, well, fuck, do something.
That's what shitcoins are for. Right? That is what that's when I get bored and come on, I should be doing something. I just try to take a few $100s out of a shitcoin and have the lobster. It is just a way to keep from mucking up my position. I don't even want to log into it right now. Right? Like I said, every asset market, I think if you tinker too much, right, you can be your own worst enemy. And so get along, get paid, and hang on we are going to get volatility back. I mean, this market is not going to be range bound right through an election.
No.
But
talking to
sure is in the meantime, it is a range bound affair.
Talking to a lot of my normie friends, the sentiment right now that I gather from them is like, well, Bitcoin has to come down. It has to come down. I'll buy when it comes down. And it begs the question, well, what does down mean? And typically when I talk to these people, it's like, oh, I'll buy back in at 34 or 40,000. It's got to come down. And I don't know if I'm just permanently bullish, but like, come down for what? I don't know. Just now doesn't seem like the time where, I don't know, I'd be waiting to get an entry price at 40K, 35K. I might be waiting for fucking ever. So
I mean, 10% is a correction, 20% is a bear market. What is 20%?
A 20% drawdown from what are we, 70?
I mean, that's not, that's 70. That's what, 15 grand correction. I mean, that's not even 50. I don't consider that a Bitcoin drawdown. I consider that right 3 weeks ago or something. No, I mean, I guess the last time it was under 50 was, we're June, looks like 3 months ago, February, March. I don't know. I mean, like back to I would ask, what do you guys consider a break to buy? 55? That sounds like it was a record high not that long ago. 30 grand, 35? I don't know. That's a 50+% correction in a market that certainly has a history of doing that, but I don't know. I I think I always ask this, that I'm going to guess that your most popular feature is the dollar cost averaging, so that you don't have to time this market. But that I remember I've asked you that before, and you're like, nah, that's not always the case. People like, they like watching it and trying to buy off resistance and time their entries. But I would just tell your customers just a dollar cost average into this.
Yeah, I mean, our motto and our customers embody the stay humble and stack sats, which isn't a specific order type, but is the always be accumulating Bitcoin, always try and hold it, and stay humble, meaning don't infer the future, don't imply that you're the best. Just buy Bitcoin, stay focused on yourself. That's who we are as a business. We stay humble and stack sats. We take cash flows, buy Bitcoin, take our corporate treasury, buy Bitcoin, and just trying one day at a time.
I mean, the other problem with waiting for a decent entry point, waiting for a better one than 70, like I said, there's asymmetric risks more, I think, to the upside. Nation state, adoption or ETF success. But I think there's and that's a hard thing to, paying new to build your position while market's making new highs. I think one thing that I've always heard is, you want to, whatever your position is, you want to get long 10 Bitcoin, go buy 2 of them right now, and then you'll probably have a loss in that, at this time next week. Markets have a 10, right? If I want to ease that, I want to get that market to come back down to a better place, a better entry point. Well, buy 20% of your position now. If it does run away from you, at least you got a start. But as typically happens, the market will find a lower point in the range, and you can put the rest of the position on. That, I don't know if that helps, but no, it's hard. Or like I say, just dollar cost average in and look back 10 weeks from now. There'll be some prices like, yeah, I bought pretty much the low of the last several months, and there will be some prices that are the high of the last several months. And I have no problem with that either. This market, right? If it does, break out of this range, I think it's a lot harder to get long. So I would be DCing in, would be my advice.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no, either way, like I said, market's doing all the work for me. I really am going to have a lot of fun watching the stock market going into this, because that's a real strong year for that as well.
What do you mean? How so?
Oh, yeah, like I said, with the Dow, I mean, that's a 5-year chart where the lowest price for the Dow was 4.5 years ago at 20,000, and the highest price is a week ago at 40, right? So it's been, I mean, that's a slow and steady. I mean, that's a nice trending market. And and add in the fact that you're going into an election year. I don't think monetary authorities like disrupting markets during election. They don't like being the feature of the election. They want to just stay out of it. The last time the Fed started hiking, we tripped a couple of insolvent banks, and that's certainly a bad look for an election year. So I think monetary policy is probably accommodative and on hold, and the trend is up. And I'm looking forward to following all this through the election. I think we're going to be going higher.
Are you surprised at the lack of price action, given how performant the ETF adoption has been, combined with the halving? Would you have expected
volatility or higher prices, or
both? Because it doesn't seem like we're getting either.
I mean, that's come on. Bitcoin, like I said, where was it a year ago? And people are disappointed. Where was it a year ago? Whatever, 25,000 to where we are now is, cannot phrase that as a disappointment. I mean, I don't know. No, 288 was a popular number by some analysts. I'm all in favor of that. That's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work to do. It's a lot of money to come in. What do we do this math every day, right? What is a block reward times 70,000 times 24 hours in a day? That's however many millions of dollars is. That's the amount of money this market needs to find just to stay at 70. So what's a block reward? 3 1/8 or something?
Yeah.
We get,
what is it, 3.125?
It's 24 times. So this market needs to find what, $35 million of new money every day, 7 days a week, weekends, holidays, in order to maintain a $70,000 price. That's heavy. That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of new supply, I think. I don't know. I think people tend to forget that when you look, Bitcoin's popular, Fidelity's in the game now. Larry Fink's a genius. Everybody's bullish. Why can't we break out of this? Well, there's also, we might need to get closer to another halving in order to get some of your real fun numbers. I don't know. That's a lot of new issuance that I don't think people really factor that in when you're price forecasting. Is the amount of equity it takes just to maintain a $70,000 price.
That's true. Semi-related, but what about the fact that a lot of the internet and Bitcoin Twitter is citing that hedge funds are shorting Bitcoin to oblivion and that they're suppressing the price, and that there's speculation that they're basis trading or arbitrage trading between derivative products and spot products? From my understanding, I found it a little bit funny that people don't seemingly understand and appreciate how markets work and why someone would short one product and long another product.
Well, there's
what are your
nothing,
thoughts? Explain.
there's nothing directional about that, and there really is no directional impact in an arbitrage operation. I was one of the first jobs I had was I had arbitrage between foreign currency, the spot markets, and the brand new CME foreign currency market. So I'd be on the phone with New York, where it's the kind of the headquarters of spot trading, and then my boss would be in the Deutschmark, Swiss, or yen pit. And when any of those prices got approximately $40 out of line, that it was profitable enough to buy one, sell the other, and keep that spread right in line. Every market, right, that is between a derivatives and an underlying needs those functions. That's how it stays tethered. Bitcoin, the delivery mechanism eventually tethers it. But in the meantime, yeah, that's an arbitrage operation, and that will end up putting hedge funds on the short side of derivative products. That's not a bearish opinion. That's simply, a lot of volume is wherever retail is coming, you sell that and buy the spot in order to close that gap.
What? You're telling me that hedge funds aren't shorting Bitcoin and manipulating its price to get cheap Bitcoin?
No.
Come on. How could you disagree with Money Fixer at hodling_Bitcoin? That guy's got all the credibility in the world. What the fuck?
Yeah, but to anyone that thinks that large players are manipulating a futures market, a derivative product, in order to get some advantage in the spot market. All I would do is ask you to just please understand there's derivatives on everything. Obviously, stock indexes, precious metals, interest rates. If large CME whales had the ability to manipulate that, I'd get together with all my friends and put interest rates down at 0 and refinance my mortgage, right? I'm not trying to belittle the concern, but if it were doable, yeah, of course somebody would do it. But I mean, it's simply, I mean, come on, Sammy's been doing this for 150 years. Among the reasons that you can trust trading there is because of the expertise. And as you know, famous, it does happen. People try to catch Marmol, the Hunt brothers, most famously, but even on smaller scales, people try to find, like I say, the St. Lawrence Seaway has an early fall freeze. You might not be able to get certain ag commodities to their delivery destinations. That doesn't change the supply demand fundamentals, but it's a natural squeezable market if you can technically satisfy delivery requirements. So there are minor opportunities for squeezing something or affecting it if you're a big enough player, but hedge funds using a derivatives product to manipulate a 24/7 international $1 trillion market like cryptocurrency, no way, not close. I don't think.
I obviously agree with that. I also I think I've said this before, but I think that people look to gold too much as a comparison to Bitcoin. Gold is a defunct commodity that doesn't work as money. Want to know why? Because nobody uses it as money. If it worked, I'd fucking use it. I'd be going to dinner with a bunch of gold in my pocket or a gold-backed note. It don't work. So I don't know why people are so quick to compare. Gold concentrates, unfortunately, because it's such a heavy metal that sucks to carry. It's impossible to divide up and make change of. It's really difficult to verify that it's real. It concentrates naturally. And what we saw is it concentrated with governments and with banks, and then that concentration and that centralization was abused. So gold, unfortunately, concentrates and centralizes because it's a really shitty metal. It's just a piece of metal. Bitcoin doesn't.
I know. Look at my notes. When you, that was my favorite. If you Google how much Bitcoin there is, you get whatever 18,792,001 quarter. If you Google how much gold there is, Google returns an answer plus or minus 22.7 million tons. So you guys are storing value in something where we don't know how much of it there is. I mean, I'm sorry, Bitcoin is just a far better scarcity argument. How much real estate is there? Well, that's reasonably fixed, but as you know, there's anybody want to drive through North Dakota? There's plenty of real estate. It's just undeveloped. There you can go up, as you know, you can put a penthouse on top of your building, but that's time and expense and everything. So real estate does have a reasonable fixed argument, but nowhere near, and gold simply does not have a fixed asset argument, in my opinion. Get the price of it high enough and you'll find it. People will recover it from dental fillings. If you get the price, you got to get the price high enough. People will recover it out of whatever photography equipment. Bitcoin just has a far better fixed asset argument. And it's going to be, I really think in a devaluation and a currency devaluation, Bitcoin is going to be the fastest horse in that scarcity.
Well, Bitcoin's got the best scarcity argument ever.
Period.
Period. I just had to draw a relationship to death on the last podcast. I said the only thing Bitcoin scarcity reminds me of is dying, is that I don't have infinite time on this planet. That's the only thing that's definitively scarce as far as I'm aware of. Everything else is, so how do you value your life and your time on this planet is that's the only way you can be remotely familiar with how much I value my Bitcoin. Everything else is not even in the same category. But the other gold comparison point I wanted to make is that Bitcoin doesn't concentrate. Because gold, it's so impossible to move, it's so impossible to store it, it's so impossible to verify that it's real, that it has to concentrate. And it concentrates with governments, with banks. And Bitcoin is the opposite. In fact, we're at an all-time low of Bitcoin stored on exchanges. What does that imply and tell you? Is that more and more of it is held with the true owner of the asset. It's held sovereignly and personally, because Bitcoin's very easy to verify if it's real or not. It's very easy to store. It's very easy to divide. It's very easy to move. You can memorize 12 words and put it in your brain. And so for that reason, it's nearly impossible, in my opinion. I would say literally impossible, actually, to manipulate. The reason you could manipulate gold, and maybe central banks do, or they reprice their currencies against and stuff, is again because it's concentrated, because it's all owned by central banks and by government. That's not true for Bitcoin. Satoshi launched Bitcoin through a mailing list. If Satoshi went to Goldman Sachs and said, hey, I got to IPO this thing, then yeah, maybe Bitcoin would be concentrated and held by Goldman and JP Morgan Chase and the US government. That's not true. Saylor can borrow as much money as he wants and buy as much Bitcoin as he can. He will never be able to obtain a large enough position to influence the protocol, influence the price, influence anything. I mean, even Satoshi.
Not only is that true, but as I can't remember who I'm quoting, it's also almost certainly not replicable. So when people make the argument, remember when people used to make the argument, you know, Facebook was not the first social network, right? MySpace was, or whatever. And then Facebook typically, often in new industries, learns from mistakes that the first guy made and gets it better the next time. And people would make that argument that you're going to learn from the mistakes. But I think what Satoshi did, right, by the fact that it had no monetary value for the first 2 years, is you cannot replicate that and get it better the next time, because it got so thoroughly distributed that the next time, you're right, if people that have learned, you know, big players that have learned by what Bitcoin has done can, right, lock up a material chunk of a new project where nobody was thinking like that.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, Bitcoin didn't even have a monetary value. You could have spent whatever when it was a penny and locked up whatever millions of it. Nobody did it. Right?
But for that reason, you guys have to understand that if gold has had price suppression and price manipulation, it's because, unfortunately, it concentrates, which is one of the main primary reasons that it didn't work, and that they left the gold standard and shoved a bunch of fiat down our throat. So that's why when people say, well, you know, gold was manipulated by hedge funds, so now that Bitcoin has an ETF, welcome to price manipulation. It's like, no. I'm sorry that your shitty defunct piece of metal didn't work, but don't compare it to my pristine technology that solved every problem and some. So I don't think it's possible to manipulate Bitcoin because, again, if someone were to naked short Bitcoin, we'll just buy it. That's the other thing is I love it. Why don't you guys mentally carry your exercise through to the real world? If some hedge fund shorted Bitcoin's price all the way down to 20K, you know what I would do? Fucking buy some. So good luck. Go for it. If Satoshi sold all his or her coins and crashed the price to 10K, I'd be a buyer. So I just don't see, I don't know. It's so uncomparable, even to your point of like the altcoins and, you know, well, MySpace wasn't perfect. So what's Facebook if Bitcoin is MySpace? Let me tell you guys something. Satoshi is 1/21st of the network in coin ownership if he actually owns 1 million, and did that all through mining. Ethereum, I'm creating a keynote on the title of my keynote, I think, for my Prague presentation is There Is No Second Best, a deep dive why there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else, because I'm so fucking sick of the like, well, Ethereum's getting an ETF. Well, it's like, well, I've been around, so I will do a 30 to 45 minute presentation on exactly why they're different and why there's nothing that will ever be compared to Bitcoin. And so I've had to do a lot of old digging and old folders of the old days of Ethereum and stuff. Did you know that there were 70 million ETH pre-mined? And guess what the total supply of Ethereum is today? And if I'm wrong,
anybody knows. Does anybody know what the supply of ETH is?
No, it's very hard to actually verify, but the correct answer is 120 million. So they have not created more Ethereum for the public than they created for the Ethereum Foundation when they created it. So more than 50% of the Ethereum supply is still the pre-mined supply.
Not a security.
Well, but I'm less interested of the opinion of a three-letter agency. More what I'm saying is now that is something that can be manipulated, controlled, price suppressed. That is more similar to gold. That has a corporation, a founding team, a foundation. Satoshi doesn't even own a 20th. How much of the supply of a thing would you need to own for you to be able to control it? So not a 20th,
No.
a 10th, no, a fifth, maybe a third, half. How the fuck is anyone going to buy 10 million Bitcoin? No way. There's just no way. So there's just, I don't even think there's enough of them for sale. We might find out when the price hits 100 million US dollars if someone can build a position worth 10 million coins. But you're going to have to get the price so high enough. It's just infeasible. But for the notion that, you know, to my dad's point, someone's going to do it better next time. Okay, what's that next time? That someone printed and issued themselves far more than 50% of the circulating supply of the thing. That's far better. Fuck out of here. I'm really excited for my keynote. It's going to be very good. I hope it's the de facto presentation to point people to on the distinct differences between Bitcoin and all the other assets.
Oh yeah, good luck. Because I do. I think, you know, I wish I'd heard this talk 6, 8, 10 years ago. Jack, I'd have bought Bitcoin, but not at these prices. I'm going to buy ETH. I think that's pretty. You're up against a lot of people that are going to think that.
Well, I'm not. My goal isn't to convince people of anything. It's to have a reliable resource of pure education. Like when someone like Saylor says there's no second best, or when someone like me says there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else. What do you mean by that? If you're actually interested in understanding the answer, I'm more than happy to explain it in 30 minutes with a keynote, with examples. And here's the other thing. I was thinking about this because it was really bothering me. And the conference wants me to do a keynote. I'm tired of announcing product shit at conferences. It's just the worst. It's bad on my health. It sucks. And so I was thinking, what should I do it on? I was just so bothered by all the like, Ethereum's getting an ETF. Well, Solana got Iggy Azalea to launch a coin. Well, what Bitcoin? All these reporters are always asking me, well, what's the difference? And I was like, how am I going to do this? What's the best angle and approach? Let me tell you guys, here's a little preview into my keynote. Let me tell you guys the angle I'm taking. I pulled up CoinMarketCap just now. Let me read to you the top 10 coins. Bitcoin number 1, Ethereum number 2, Tether, so a different version of the dollar, number 3, BNB, Binance coin, number 4, Solana, number 5, USDC, so another version of the dollar, number 6, Ripple, number 7, Dogecoin, number 8, Oncoin, number 9, and Cardano rounds out the top 10. How many of these do you think uses proof of work?
1.
0. Oh, well, Bitcoin. Yes. And so the conclusion I came to, so Ethereum uses proof of stake. Solana uses proof of history. BNB uses POSA. What is that? It's an innovative solution that combines proof of stake and proof of authority. Proof of stake authority. And there's a very famous quote by a friend of mine that to understand Bitcoin is to understand proof of work. And I've gone back in my folders and in my own history, and Satoshi was very upfront about this. Is the only way I can make this work is with proof of work. And so that's the approach I'm going to take, is that it used to be a lot harder to explain the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum, because Ethereum just copied everything. It also used proof of work. It just copied everything, and it was a lot trickier at basically committing fraud in explaining that it was better than Bitcoin. But now Vitalik has made it so easy. They don't even use proof of work, which was the entire innovation in the first place. So my approach is going to be explaining why proof of work. I've already done a keynote on why proof of work solves time in Bitcoin, but it solves about a dozen things. And so I'm going to explain exactly how proof of work enabled Bitcoin, and then why, if you remove proof of work, it will fail. Like, so Solana goes down about once a week. And I will technically explain why, because it doesn't have any proof of work in it. And so that'll be my approach, because now it's like, if you understand that proof of work is the only thing that could build a scalable, distributed, decentralized digital money, all you got to do is pull up CoinMarketCap and realize there are no other proof of work coins, because that would require a commodity premium and someone actually investing real resources to create the coin. The cost of capital, the cost of money would actually be meaningful. No one's putting up server farms and investments and fucking ASIC chips to mine Cardano. Proof of stake, where I get to print a bunch of it, give it to myself, and I then validate the network. If I had to rely on real capital allocators supporting my network, my network would be worth nothing. Anyway, that's my approach. I'm pretty excited about it, because if I can get everyone to understand proof of work, then we can very technically walk through the defunctness of everything else, because they don't use it. Time will tell. Okay.
Big presentation. You got a lot of a big audience, or?
Supposedly it's the biggest conference in Europe. I think I headline Saturday and Sailor headlines Friday. So my message to everyone going, don't get too drunk on Friday night, because I think I'm Saturday at like 9:30 a.m. or something. And I really am trying to make this I want this to be an asset for Bitcoiners and for the rest of the world, to say, hey, if you're really interested in learning the difference between Bitcoin and everything else, you should watch this. So I hope it's one of my best. I'm holding myself to that standard. I'm really excited about it, especially, I mean, they're asking me about the ETH ETF, and people are calling ETH, like, if Bitcoin's digital gold, Ethereum is digital oil, all this fucking garbage. All over TV. They're asking me that on Bloomberg. So I'm going to send this to everyone I know, Bloomberg analysts. I hope it's one that passed the test of time. So we'll see. So Saturday morning in Prague, and for those of you that won't be there, I'm hopeful they'll capture it and put it on YouTube.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Cool. Okay. Well, I also was coming off the Human Rights Foundation Oslo Freedom Forum. But I think we're going to wait for Cookie to recap that one. There's no rush on recapping it, because I want to include her opinion on what Bitcoin means for freedom. I don't want to keep her out of that conversation. So what do you say, Dill? Why don't we do some Q&A, and then I got to go find some fucking like the Italian version of NyQuil. I got a stuffy nose.
Yeah, let's do it. We got one question. So from Hodling Bitcoin, he said, I like the recent episode where you explained the history of how you all got started in Bitcoin. Could you discuss the main challenges you faced at Strike since it was founded until the recent Europe intro? Is there anything you do differently if you started over?
Go to law school. Jack would go to law school, and both of his brothers would go to law school. I'm telling you, you got to have lawyers in, right? Isn't that? I think didn't Brian Armstrong famously say, when Coinbase got that Union Square allocation, it was like, okay, this is a real company, because we didn't know prior to that it was Mt. Gox or Silk Road. I mean, it was kind of Wild Wild West, and they got that. And I think Coinbase was quoted as saying that 70% of it's going to legal.
Yeah.
I answered for you. That would be, what would you do differently other than go to law school?
I like the name of the law firm though. Mallers, and Mallers, M3.
Yeah. Law school's a good one. I don't know. We would have to do a whole episode. I'd do so much. But what would I do differently building a business?
Yeah. Well, I'd start with domestic or foreign. Would you start it in Canada or something because of all the regulatory pressure
No,
you had to go through?
no. I mean, the regulatory pressure was a lot, especially um, on the forefront of the First Nation state adopting it. You know, you guys imagine being 26 years old and getting a call from the IMF.
Right.
Would you shit your pants too? Yeah, that. But no, I mean, America is the biggest market in the world. It's still BTC USD is still our biggest product by a long shot. It's not even close. So, I don't know some of the highlights. Well, listen, I think first and foremost, I certainly got a lot of the Lightning Network stuff wrong. Uh, I think I'm directionally correct on where Lightning is going, the problems it solves, and that's been validated, in my opinion, by all sorts of different companies and like LightSpark and everyone that's building on the same thesis that I started. But I got the timing wrong. So the technology is great, and I think the direction is correct. But I was under the impression that Lightning was going to change everything immediately. And it's harder to change consumer behavior. The other thing people don't really appreciate about my story is Strike is arguably my first real job. I worked for a startup in Chicago for about 8 months before that, but um, I, I didn't know how difficult it was to change consumer behavior to scale certain technologies as big as I thought. So that part, I think, totally hand up. Like it's just going to take more time. Now, the reason that that's okay is the thing that I also got wrong, but in a better light, is that I didn't know that Strike in my business would be one of the best in the world at selling people Bitcoin and providing Bitcoin financial services. When I got into Bitcoin, I thought, oh, well, surely Mt. Gox is going to be the Bitcoin company for the world. Who's going to be selling people Bitcoin and providing the best leading Lightning Network wallet or general wallet services and free on-chain withdrawals and all sorts of products and services on top of Bitcoin? Oh, surely Mt. Gox. Well, that didn't work. And then I thought, well, surely it was going to be Brian Armstrong and Coinbase. Well, they're not that interested in Bitcoin. Well, then I thought CZ and Binance and Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX were way smarter than I ever was, and they're both in jail. And so I think the other pleasant surprise that I've had is that I and Strike are one of the only moral, ethical, principled, focused, mission and vision driven Bitcoin businesses that are focused on giving the world better money through Bitcoin. There's no one else in the world that's doing that. And what I mean by that, well, sure, there's other Bitcoin only companies. Let me explain though. We operate on our own licenses, our own infrastructure, our own compliance programs. I mean, we are a Bitcoin financial services business from scratch. And we're the only one that's available globally and the only one that stands vertically tall on our own stuff. And there's nothing wrong with taking different approaches, but what I didn't know is the value that that would have in the marketplace. I thought surely like in 2014 when I was really like starting to try and contribute to Bitcoin Core and stuff, I thought, oh, well, surely in the year 2024, Brian Armstrong, who's going to have the first Lightning wallet? Coinbase. Who's going to have free on-chain withdrawals first? Coinbase. Who's going to be the leading Bitcoin voice and the leading Bitcoin expert? Brian. Of course I thought that. I thought never in a million years would I be that lucky to have a business that is one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world at Bitcoin. And so I think the Lightning Network timing stuff, I definitely thought, I thought we'd be further along than we currently are, but I'm willing to accept that because changing payments like that's just going to take time. I was wrong in thinking it was going to happen as quickly as I did. It's still like a growing part of our business and it's great, but it's a fraction of, I mean, our business does a ton of volume and that volume is all buy, sell, on chain. I mean, we do serious on chain volume at Strike. We will do, tens of billions of dollars of volume of on-chain over the next year. And that's just not where Lightning is right now.
So another decision you guys made early on that I was kind of confused by, but now I think totally is you guys no corporate headquarters. You guys work out of your home and outsource. I mean, both of your big expenses, right? I got payroll and I got office space, and you guys really have neither of those things, right? Don't you outsource? You guys are almost all hourly contractors on your coders, right? That gives you the flexibility of turn the volume up or down, or and also just not having the glut overhead that of a corporate headquarters has got to be a big. I mean, I think it probably gives your company that kind of bootstrap energy, right? I just started this out of my basement, out of my parents' basement. I've graduated to my walk-in closet, but those have been your two places where you've written every line of code, right? Has either been in a basement or a closet.
Yeah.
And outsourcing and everything, I think that's what I would say was a great decision on your guys' part.
Yeah. I think the remote work from day one was great. Maybe we should do a behind the scenes of Strike episode. The truth about that was Strike was born out of open source Bitcoin development. So as soon as I started the company, everyone that I wanted to be a part of it was all over the place. I mean, my lead of development, my CTO, he's in Spain. He's been in Spain forever. And so I didn't have a choice. But we already had the infrastructure and the communication skills because we had worked together in open source for so long. So it wasn't a problem to build in a distributed way. So we actually came into Strike without any expectation or experience of working in an office. I was born and raised on the internet as far as professionally. Grew up on Bitcoin Reddit and Bitcoin Twitter and Bitcoin open source code bases. I did not learn much of what I know in an office. I either learned it from you at home or I learned it online. So
we had in early days of First American, one of our first competitors. We had a decent year because you never knew if you were going to survive, right? We had Senior and I had 4 employees and we're borrowed office space, right? Just to see if the concept, could go. And I remember after having some of our first good stretch, one of my competitors started showing up for work in a limousine. I swear to God, he'd pull up and get out of his limo. And I go, okay, there's that many leads that your shop isn't getting that I'm getting, right? Because every dollar is going in at that point when the business is expanding, kind of, similar to what you guys are doing. Every dollar, right, is going into your engineers writing code, and you don't have corporate headquarters or who was it that wanted a branded Hummer when they first came out? Like that'll give my firm that forward-looking cutting edge. Yeah, but that's that many more leads that your reps aren't getting. No, I think I love the way you guys have bootstrapped, and I think that really I think it probably percolates through the whole culture of your company.
Yeah, our biggest expense, our line item expense is people. And that's it. We don't have any other big expenses. So that's the other thing too, is
keyboards. I don't know what else you guys need. You're a software company.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I learned extremely high margin business, right? Like we operate in the margin profile of 75, 85, 90% sometimes. So the thing I would say also is, I had to learn venture capital, and
I'll take the low number of that and still beat pretty much anybody that's not in software.
Oh, it's a phenomenal business.
That's ridiculous, right?
It's a phenomenal business. And I mean, this shouldn't be a secret to anybody. Like Coinbase publishes I think their margins in Q1 was 86%. So, I mean, software, that's why technology is so amazing, is you build a thing that has fixed costs of running it on a server, and then you can sell it to 8 billion people. That's why from a corporate standpoint, it turns into such an amazing business opportunity. And there's so much venture capital and investment in just doing all things tech, because from business 101, I mean, grocery stores don't operate with that margin, right? And they don't have an ability to serve that many customers. So it's a total, that's why it's so disruptive. But the other thing I would say is I had to learn, about venture and what I wanted out of the business. And like in 2021, we had the Bitcoin car. So for those unfamiliar, I raced the Bitcoin car at the Indy 500. Right after that was El Salvador and the announcement of the first nation state adopting Bitcoin. Right after that, we partnered with Twitter and we brought Bitcoin and Lightning to the first public company. And that was just a run that I went on. And a lot of people wanted to be around me. And I would say in hindsight, for a lot of the wrong reasons. And so that was a really tough time where I had to, in real time, as a really young guy or kid, arguably still, sort through, what I wanted. You could take unlimited venture money and do growth and get into shit coins and get into all sorts of things. And one day I did wake up and say, this is my thing. I fully control Strike. I'm the largest shareholder of Strike by a mile. I control the board. I control everything. And I want to be this is the type of, I know now what type of company I want. So I turned around to a lot of the people and I said, get the fuck out. And like, I never thought I'd have fire anyone, right? Like as a kid, you don't think about that as being part of what it's like to build a business. And so that was also one of the most pivotal moments, is when I finally realized, like, wait a second, all these people that want to be around me may not have my best interest or Bitcoin's best interest. And what do I want? And, what do I want for the future of Strike? And what do I want to see in Bitcoin? And that was probably one of the more pivotal moments, is I took, I know there's a lot of speculation of, do Bitcoin businesses own any Bitcoin? Oh yeah. So I think like well over 80%, maybe 90% of Strike's balance sheet is in Bitcoin. And we run the business sustainably. We run the business profitably. We take cash flows and we buy Bitcoin. And that moment, I really adopted like the culture of hire slow, fire fast. Particular people are going to be a part of this thing. And we're going to focus on staying humble, stacking sats as a corporation. And that this is my thing. This isn't anyone else's thing. But that took some time of making mistakes and experiencing a lot of tough shit from, in hindsight, a lot of people that I can't really speak highly of. So I don't know. I guess the way I'd end it too is one of the shitty things about my story, I think, is having to learn so much in front of so many people. It's really embarrassing. And sometimes, I felt a little ashamed of, having to make so many mistakes and learn so much in front of like millions of people. But to be honest, I'm not sure I would change anything at all, because I think back and I acquired a lot of really valuable information and insights and lessons. For what? What cost did I pay? If I'm the guy that says, debt to GDP has to be realized, if I'm familiar with markets, like I had to realize those losses of my own, those mistakes of my own. What did I pay to learn all that shit, to have an amazing business and an amazing opportunity? Well, I didn't pay anything, right? Like I thought to myself, man, it would have been really, really expensive if I had to learn all that shit a different way at a different time. I would have had to learn it way later, and it would have been way more expensive. I don't know, tens of thousands of Bitcoins for me to acquire the information I got. So I don't know if that was what the listeners wanted to know, and we could do a whole episode on some of this stuff, but I learned a ton, and I'm pretty thankful how I learned it and the cost I had to pay to learn it, because in hindsight, it was pretty cheap for me to be able to build Bitcoin products and stuff for you guys. And that selling Bitcoin is an amazing business for us. And just listening to customers, we just listen to you guys now. Whatever you guys need, we work for our customers. We took that approach. Lightning's going to take the time it's going to need to take. So I was wrong about the timing of Lightning, but we were right about being ethical and principled and focused solely on Bitcoin. And
definitely, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's my shorter answer. And if you guys want, we could do an episode. Maybe I do one with like Peter McCormick or something. I'm more than happy to share all the deepest, darkest secrets of all the shit that went down. What was it like for a 25-year-old to be working on nation state adoption and cross lines with the IMF? And what was my secret hotel name when I had to live for a little bit, not in my real name. I'm happy to tell those stories, but maybe not on Money Matters. We'll see. Cool. Okay. Well, this was a good one. And next week, we'll get Cookie back and we'll debrief the Oslo Freedom Forum and the Prague conference.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dill.
Sounds good, guys.
Get long, get paid.
See you, everyone.